Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, where latest post covering finance and property news Monday evening again. And I have Edwin back. Edwin, you look a bit cold tonight.
Well, that's a good news is that I've got a few jackets on hand and to keep me warm and as well as a few scarves. But yeah, look, we're going to be apparently we're going to be getting a rain bomb over the next few days, and that's going to be interesting to see what happens across Sydney. My prediction still stands that we're going to see parts of Schofield Ponds and Box Hill, those areas they'll be underwater because not because I want to be a bastard about it and wishing for it, but because of what's happening, what doesn't happen when these sort of lands get developed and there's no real controls or checks and balances with regard to the outflow of the water, the rainwater that comes down, and when it comes down really hard, but also the all the debris and everything that goes into the storm water drains and blocks the drains, and then you're going to have issues.
Well, the ponds, a bit of a clue in the name there. And
Yeah.
the East Coast low is forecast over the next 24 hours or so to dump a lot of water. Interestingly, of course, over in Europe, the temperature's 40 degrees in Spain, and they're forecasting up to 34, 35 degrees on the first day of Wimbledon. So you can imagine that the Brits are now sweating like mad, complaining about the very, very hot temperatures. So it's very interesting, just the relativities. But again, we have to start with our "you can't make the S up" segment, right? There is so much incredible stuff going on that you wouldn't believe, really, would you?
Well, that's right. A week or so ago, I shared when I come back in the next lifetime, I want to come back as a combination of being a plumber and a carpenter because I think that's a perfect combination. Knowing what we know now and knowing who's really making the money in construction and with all with all that goes on. So to me, I think that's a perfect combination. I mean, Sparkies would also want to be in that mix, but I don't. As I said, I don't like electricity because you can't see it. You can't see it, smell it, but when he gets you, it really bites. So, but look, now on that positive spin, I've added another category to my next lifetime, and that is I'm really being persuaded to become a politician. With these kind of with these kind of dollars floating around. I mean, this is Martin. This is the thing. This is the thing about our show, right? We're so far ahead of the pack with a lot of things that we've been telling the young people if you're going to aspire to do anything in life post high school, forget about tertiary education. Just become a real estate agent and a politician. That's where the money really is, right?
Absolutely. Well, of course, politicians have this benefit of this massive, amazing superannuation scheme that means they won't actually ever get taxed and stuff later. It's just remarkable. And the relativities, by the way, some of the pollies in Australia are doing extremely well relative to people in other countries, even if the countries are a lot bigger. And you wonder sometimes how this is all going. But it is what it is. I would put it in the same category as the next slide here, which is that when is something made in Australia when it's not? This is quite interesting,
Well,
right?
this comes back to all the policies that we get lumbered with the political sector and look, although this is talking about the food and packaging of food. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we can talk about with regard to our iron ore going abroad very cheaply, and then we buy it back in terms of steel and other products that are used for the construction industry. This is not new to me. What Matthew put up there today in his post is really not new to me because I was brokering a deal with a fisheries company down in Wollongong about 19 years ago. with an accountant friend of mine, and we were trying to get a buyer for this for this fishing company down in based in Wollongong, and I learned some interesting things then, Martin, and that was the fact that. The prawns that they buy the prawn from all the trawlers go out into into the ocean down all the way down to down to the tip and close to Tasmania, and they bring back the prawns and other fish, of course, and they buy it from the trawlers. They own trawlers themselves. And the interesting thing of it all, and the learning experience that I had was that in discussions with the owners of this business, I found out back then that the food products, the packaging that you buy in Woolworths, you buy in Coles and other supermarkets, the fish and or anything related to fish that comes in packaging. Well, guess what? It goes to the Asian Pacific countries from Thailand, and around there, and then they actually process it. They snap freeze it here. They ship it out to these other countries, and then they thaw it. They clean it there, and they clean the prawns and everything else. And they package it, and then they send it back to the fishing this fisher's company over in Wollongong, and then they distribute it from there to all the supermarkets around Australia. I mean, that's and I that was about 10, 11 years ago, and I actually got an opportunity to I was back then I was a little bit more vocal on radio as well with the different shows, and I was sharing this experience in this call with one of the commentators on 2UE. And it was absolutely, I was gobsmacked. I was fascinated by the whole process. So this isn't anything, it's not new, but it shows you what we've done, or the politicians, the political arena have done to this nation. And if you're looking at food and vegetables, you would think that something that's a perishable like that. I mean, how much does it cost to send it abroad?
Mm.
And what are you doing in the cost of sending it abroad? So it's cheaper to send it abroad to get it packaged, get it washed, get it sorted, send it over there to get it packaged, and then bring it back frozen again to be distributed. I mean, it's insane. It just uh, leaves you thinking because of we don't or I think the last cannery that we had was in Victoria somewhere, and that got shut down about 8 years ago as well. And but it's insane, mate. It just shows you the level of the politics that has political policies that have gone absolutely uh, wayward, and here we are, and we're paying for the consequences. I mean, you often talk about energy, the exploitation of natural gas, other fossil fuels, and obviously our iron ore and mining products, and then we pay through the nose to bring it back into the country, and now moving forward. With a lot of the building materials are very dubious as to what they have inside, and what how compliant they really are to our standards, but nobody's checking.
Well, it's disgraceful, isn't it? Because effectively we've hollowed out Australia so dramatically. You know, the modelling shows that we've got a very narrow-based economy. In fact, this chart really highlights it. This is the export volumes, and you can see here resources way up the top, although coming down. And then we've got services, that includes education, of course, rural goods and other goods, and you can see that it's gone sideways or down. The other interesting report that came out today was suggesting that ahead, demand for resources is likely to deteriorate, partly because of the trade wars and partly just because China's coming off the boil. And so you can see here that our whole economy is becoming narrow and narrow and narrow. We're becoming more reliant on, as you say, exporting stuff overseas, get it processed overseas because it's cheaper, and then bring it back. So think about the transportation costs. They're still lower than actually paying people in Australia to do stuff. So that's a problem with our wages structure as well. And the other interesting observation, you mentioned gas. I saw today that the government is now admitting that they're going to actually do an inquiry into the gas industry. Well, that's 12 years too late, probably, but better late than never. But you really, I find it really difficult to Edwin to give any credibility to any of this stuff. And by the way, on the economy and just what's going on, this came in, and Chalmers is perhaps closer to a shock budget surplus than was originally thought because of, wait for it, soaring tax revenues. And the story here is that Chalmers, of course, admitted last week that the federal budget was unsustainable. There is a potential for an 8.7% rise in spending, which are not very helpful. But the tax take was somewhat up. Guess what? The tax take was considerably higher thanks to income tax. Well, of course, that's because we are being asked to pay more income tax. Also, company tax was looking as though the lift there, and of course, tax on superannuation too. Saul Eslake, the independent economist, said there would need to be a $5.3 billion surplus in June for the budget to record a surplus across 24-25. But the end of the 4-year estimates, the states potentially will have to borrow just to pay for their interest expenses. And that means there's less scope for the state governments to respond to adverse economic shocks. So, but like it or not, the economics that we've actually got in Australia are just stupid. It is not sustainable what we're doing at the moment. The political decisions over the last decade to 2 decades has led us up this garden path. And sure, we might be able to find a bit more tax take. Guess what? One of the ones, of course, on the list there is potentially the GST. And there was this article from Noel Whittaker, who wrote a book arguing maybe uplift the GST because you can't get round it, but also making the point that a lot of the other levers are not necessarily that sustainable, and the tax take actually on income tax is very high in Australia and bites quite early. So, wherever you look at it, we are in a very difficult situation. But the salvation, of course, is the property story, right? Because more and more and more, the Australian economy is a property market with a small economy bolted on the side.
Well, you look at all the policies favour the property sector, the property industry, and that's the way that we're going to be pushing, and the government's going to be pushing for a very long time. And people have just got to face the fact that we're in for this slide. We're in for this roller coaster ride for is it half a decade or a full decade before things can turn around. In the meantime, yes, people are suffering. People are it's painful to rent, and yet it's painful. The dream has become an absolute nightmare for some caught that are caught in the actual property arena, as well as those that want to get into the property arena but can't because they're just being priced out continuously because of the government policies that are being dished out left, right, and centre to try and to put band-aids on one aspect and not looking at the whole the whole cancerous growth that's within, where that's really coming in with from the political decisions that are being made. But and there you have it. So regardless of which way you go, everything is favouring everything. Any policy that is enacted that's going to be put in place is one that's going to favour the property sector and the property industry. So once people become realize and become aware of that, they're going to start to have to make the hard decisions and and bite the bullet. As I say, you either rethink your position as to where you want to be and rethink your status in life and make that decision, or make the sacrifices in order to have some sort of stability, because that is what people are looking for. People are looking for stability. People are looking for that sense of that peacefulness, Martin. People are on edge. Everywhere you go, traffic, the road rage is up. People walking around, with more, you sort of, you can't look at people these days. You just sort of got to look ahead, and you can't look sideways or anything because it seems like everybody's just on a short fuse and on edge. But this is what the policies have are developing and are festering, and what you just got to ask, what is going to happen. So in terms of policies, as we said, and in terms of sustaining the property prices and the growth, well, you're gonna have to dish out. You're gonna have to push the mainstream to start talking the economy up and talking rate cuts and talking over left, right, and centre, because otherwise the government will be, it'll be a shame for Albo's, then people are going to start questioning, why does Albo get the $650,000 a year again? How, why we got him in, why we got him in that position when all, not only Albo but also Mintz was up there with over 400K for his salary. But and this is where we are, and look, as we spoke last week, with a lot of policies that are people think of mutual recognition. We think about the mutual recognition with the landscape of the professionals, but we also forget about the mutual recognition and the professionals, in inverted commas, the professionals that are within the property industry and the sector, and what that's going to mean for players, because we need more. We need new money. We need fresh money. We need, as I keep on saying, we need those fresh bunnies to come in. We need those fresh lambs to the slaughter to buy the off the plan apartments and to buy, because without it, Martin, let's face it, builders are not building. Builders won't build unless they can sell the stock. And in the budget last week, I mean, there's rumours that as you and I have been broke at 15 months ago, 18 months ago, and we said that the developers were sitting on their hands, and they're saying, no way, Jose, until the government sticks their hand in the pocket and guarantees a surety of sales at the end, sales at the end, we're not going to put shovel to the ground. And this is the problem and the dilemma that the governments have, from state to federal, because no one wants to get involved with the residential construction industry. And going back a step with the GST, that is at 10%. When you look at commercial property, a lot of people aren't aware that when you're buying commercial property, if it's tenanted, the GST is waived. But if there's no tenant in place, you pay the GST up front, and you won't get funding for the GST. So that is on top of your stamp duty. Yes, you do recover the GST when you lodge a claim, 3 months down the track, but you still got to have that. You still got to fork that up front. Put that up front in order to transact others going on. So hence the reason why people are just are weary of even touching the your small commercial or retail properties, and this is why you're seeing more and more as people drive around. They will see more and more vacant shops, empty offices on the ground floor, especially those mixed use apartments. So then this goes back to what I've been talking about for almost 2 decades. Why the hell are we building mixed use developments in the middle of freaking nowhere? Because we've got this notion that people in the building are going to go downstairs and have a cup of coffee. You can, and then all of a sudden, every development has not only one coffee shop underneath it, but it has two or three. And how many coffees can people afford with the cost of living crisis that we're facing? And they're also talking about, lo and behold, coffee bean prices going up, and a cup of coffee could potentially cost us $12 by the end of the year. I mean, this is where we are. So we've got to bring in fresh blood, Martin. We've got to bring in, and this is where, when we start talking about if you can't beat them, you join them. Where my mate Charles is, I believe he's on a winner, because he's, opening up in India and UAE, and this is where, this is the move. We spoke about it last week. I think he's a genius when it comes to franchising and to establishing a footprint in terms of the Century 21 brand. And now when talking to him, meeting up with him face to face, and we had a long chat. As I said to our followers and viewers that I'll be catching up with him, caught up with him, and I mean, the man's 70 years old, and is younger than most 40-year-olds, and you could probably outdo most 40-year-olds as it is. And he's moving. After the conversation, I started thinking deeper as to our conversation last week when we were discussing, if you can't join them, if you can't beat them, you join them. Well, the mutual recognition is going to be absolutely phenomenal moving forward, and this is why I keep on saying and beating that drum that there are many parts of the Sydney markets that are still going to fly and have got a long way to go, and because they've become very, 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 very attractive to a lot of these new PR holders that we're coming because of the mutual recognition with regards to the professional qualifications.
Well, it is very interesting. We are going to see, I think, this continued drive to bring people into Australia to drive the property market that way. And we'll talk a bit about perhaps about what's next, because there are always other countries. We can reach around the place and invite a few more people to come in. We've only got 27 million people in Australia. There's a lot of people out there in the rest of the world, and some of those are going to have enough money to be able to buy property in Australia and drive the prices even higher. So that's sort of one angle. The other angle, of course, which is the thing which I come back to, and I made a show a few days ago on this, is this whole question of the fibs and the bribes and the plain stupidity that we're seeing at the moment from our politicians. I made a show on it called Fibs, Bribes and Plain Stupidity, Hooks, More First-Time Buyers. And of course, just going briefly through the story, of course, Albo is got this new scheme coming through next year. We've got the Queensland Boost to Buy scheme with just a 2% deposit. And it's remarkable, but they're all outbidding each other. And interestingly, the story is that Queensland shouldn't be locked out of buying a home because they don't have a bank of mum and dad. That's why we're delivering a nation-building Boost to Buy scheme in our first budget. The program will give Queenslanders $150,000 ability to purchase. And of course, just to add insult to injury, we also got Tasmania, who's got, funny enough, got an election on the moment. Isn't it interesting how the elections are all built around, incentives for people to actually buy property? So Tasmania is following suit, a 2% deposit and more money. In fact, the Premier of Tasmania basically tweeted out saying, well, what you can do is you can grab the $30,000 by way of the cash deposit, use that cash deposit to be able to pay your 2%. And that means that you can get money on the way through. You can buy property, we'll pay. It is a crazy, crazy situation where more and more people are bribed to be able to get into the property market to keep the Ponzi scheme going, right?
Yeah, but apart from the bribes and the shenanigans that goes on, and the buying of it's actually buying the votes when you look at it at face value, but it's counterproductive, Martin, because the politicians haven't really thought it through, because at the end of the day, young people, young families, they know very well, they're very well educated with a lot of the things that go on with the building sector and the industry, and they're trying as much as they can to stay away from apartments and high-rise developments, and particularly the ones that have been built over the last 15 years. And they know what they as desperate as they are, they try their very best. So what happens is that is why it's driving the prices of your Mount Druitts, your St Clairs, your Dundas, your Tregears, your Rabies, all these areas where it was probably the last place you would look for a home. But now they're already, in many of these areas, they're already fetching $1 million plus for your old fibro cladded homes that need a lot of attention. Why? Because there is no option. Because people are driven and forced to go down that path.
Mm.
Because we've also stalled the construction. The construction's in a quagmire at the moment. It's going nowhere fast in terms of your residential developments. So, and in order for as I keep on saying, and we've been saying for a very long time, and every time we bring this topic to the attention of our followers and our viewers, and that is in order for a build at the commencement of a building to completion, it could be anywhere between 3 to 5 years. Look at the shit that's going on over in Newcastle, where projects have been stalled for the last 2 3 years because of issues that they've now encountered with sinkholes and everything else about the place. And the same happens all over the east coast of Australia. I mean, you can incentivize people, whichever way, but the ones that really capitalizing on this are the sellers of the old, as I said, the old lemons, the investors that are selling their old lemons, their old homes in these places where once, as I said, you would think that would be the last place you would put your money down and to raise a family because of the nature of the concerns around the area in terms of crime and everything else. So, but hey, everything everything changes. So you've got this. They're really in a pickle. The politicians are really, really in a pickle because, as I said, they're really driving, whether they see it, whether they don't, I mean, we know that they don't care, but I mean, it's just one of those things that's right in front of you, but they just don't want to see it, Martin. They think they're going to get people into new developments. They think they're going to get people into the high-rise developments, but put it quite simply, we can't build.
Well, let's just look at that for a second because Tarek shared a post a little while ago, and I'm going to put it up now. So this is data. He quoted the AFR about the construction costs of a 2-bedroom, 85 square meter apartment. It ranges from $467,000 in Melbourne to $555,000 in Brisbane. On average, this is more expensive than building a 230 square meter house. And he said that's why, of course, the idea of 3-bedroom apartments is not answer to current build prices. And that's really the point. The economics of going up, and effectively, if you want to build bigger going up, it doesn't stack up. And so that's the first part of the story. But I think, Edwin, there's another part of the story too. And this is, I think, a good example of that. And it's just highlighting the fact that real estate developers are on the edge. And this is just another example here, the Bathler Group. There were others reported, according to this article, and a large number of private credit firms have declined to take on the company's debt and those sorts of things. So the economics of trying to build anything is pretty scary. The economics of trying to build up apartments is even more adverse. And then, of course, you've got, as the AFR said in the article, a lot of extra costs with the extra hurdles you have to jump through and the extra fees you have to pay. And as you say, the time frame is the other thing. The whole approval process, particularly for building apartments, is extremely extended as well. So economically, it makes no sense at all, which is why there is this huge then drive to buy standalone property, even if it's further out, second-class property, even if it's further out, which is why the lights of Mount Druitt are continuing to look pretty favourable. Supply, demand. And then if you put that over the top with the other story about the fact that there's still this incentive process to try and encourage first-time buyers to buy something, anything, all of the governments, state and federal, we're going to have more stuff coming through too from the feds too. Everything is being driven in a way that is putting a blowtorch on some property types in some locations at some price points. But that doesn't mean that the property market is healthy. It doesn't mean that the property market is actually going in the right direction. It doesn't mean the developers are actually suddenly making a lot of money. And it doesn't mean that the states are going to be able to achieve the targets, which means that the Fed isn't going to achieve its target of 1.25 million properties, it's just going to be a disaster. And yet, guess what? Everyone's talking about it. And going back to the earlier point, and of course, they're turning the blowtorch on bringing more people in to buy new property. And as you said, well, the new wave, what are we going to call the new wave, right? There are new buyers coming in.
Yeah.
Maybe not as bad, as big as the WeChats or the Silent Tigers or who else, but there are more people coming.
But you got to bring them. You got to keep on bringing them. And if we think that we're immune, because because the Libs didn't get in, and we're there, the slip of the tongue, where they are talking about the golden visas, or the pathway with the investment visa pathway. If you think that the Labor Party are immune to that, or aren't going to use that as the next fix, well, I've got a bridge to tell you that's right next to a nice piece of real estate that they call the Opera House as well. So and you've got to bring these people in. The money, yes, there are your Kryptonians, your people that have got other assets, your golden knights, those that are holding on to gold and silver and everything else. You got or other stocks and stuff in the share market that are sitting on the sideline waiting to jump in as well. But outside of that, you've got to bring in fresh blood to buy the new, and this is where, as we know, that the push is really to buy new. Because that is the only way that you're going to stimulate, and you're going to get more of that stamp duty revenue and more taxes, because that is what the governments live by, and that's the fix that they're being on. That's the drug that they've been on for the last 25, 30 years. And you can't that junkie will not kick its habit. It's there. It's in, and it's going to be in the next generation of politicians, and it will continue to be on. So you've got to bring these new people in. So the new people, I don't know what to call the new people, Martin. I don't know what to call them, because it's a combination of your Thai, your Indonesians, and from that region. I don't know what to call them, but they're starting to shake some ground in some of the markets. And I know about these groups because of the Indonesian real estate agents that I'm working with currently, that we're working with, and we're looking for properties for some Thai families. And these are people with deep pockets, and they're not blinking. When you tell them, and why are they doing it? Why? I'm not saying in the majority, it's because there's a lot of money. That this is new money that's come into Thailand. If you look at the Thailand, the nature of Thailand, apart from the tourism, and apart from the massages and happy endings that people used to go to over there for, I mean, Thailand's really developed. And you've got a lot of people that are going there to learn Muay Thai, and everything else, and having raging parties. But look, Thailand's become a place where you've got your medical holidays. When I say medical holidays, it's a destination for people that are going there in order to get dental treatment done, which is very costly here in Australia. But you pay a third the price over there in Thailand, and they are in these state of the art facilities, dental practices. You also you think about how difficult it is to get organ transplants here, but if you got the money, you go to Thailand. If you got try to get stem cell here in Australia, and you won't be able to. So you got to go over there. So these are procedures that are worth tens and tens of thousands of dollars, that people are going over there, and not only from Australia, but from all other parts of the world. I mean, other parts of the world as well. You get there's other parts like Turkey. I believe they're very good with dental and everything else. But Thailand just basically kicks the bucket in many ways, and other parts of Singapore as well. Now on top of that. not without being disrespectful to the Thai people and the as a nation, but we know that and this is what the Thai and the Singaporeans that we deal with currently are dealing with our agencies dealing with. They tell us the reasons why, and the reasons why is because they don't want to hold the money that they've been making over the last decade. They don't want to hold it in house. They've got to disperse it because a change of government in a lot of these countries, a change of policy, a change of government there can be devastating for the wealth as well. So they've got to funnel it elsewhere. Look, as a matter of fact, and getting straight to the point, most of the Indonesian people that look at our Australian market, they think our Australian market, in comparison to theirs and in comparison to other parts of the world where they could invest for yield, they think that our market is really shit.
Mm.
The return is really bad. But why do they bring it here? Because it's a safe haven, because the connections are there, because of the relationships between the embassies, between the governments, and because of the I'll turn a blind eye sort of shit, and because we're so close, and obviously apart from education and we've been a safe haven for many other cultures and many other nations for a very long time now, and that will continue we will continue to be so moving forward. And hey, Sydney's very, very, very attractive. I mean, the Melbourne cafe culture used to be, but and you've also got your Gold Coast and your Queensland. So we're becoming very, very attractive. So I don't know. So it's big money, it's black money, legitimate money. But they just don't want to keep it in the bank accounts there. And the other thing, Martin, is that my understanding is that Indonesia is very much a a cryptocurrency nation, and they trade a lot, and without being without being too far out there. I mean, we understand, we know the origins of Bitcoin, what it was for, and they'll continue to use it for those purposes, because that is one way to move money globally, one way or another. I don't know how they do it, don't know how it's done, but that's how they do it. I mean, there's new regulations and laws that are being brought in, the MLA and so forth, but it's not going to. There'll still be pathways. Still be legitimate ways, and a lot of it that comes in isn't necessarily coming in through the back door. It's coming in through the door that's wide open, that the governments have left wide open in order for people to buy it. So you've got to bring them in, and whilst we're not, in order to keep up with the population growth as we've been having, in order to keep up with the population growth, in order to keep up with the demand, the local demand and the needs of the people. I mean, we got to build 5 times the amount that we're building. We got to be building that for the next 10 years to catch up. But every year we're going backwards in the ledger.
Absolutely. And the fact is, of course, that the pressure on local Australians trying to buy into the property market are being exacerbated by all of these overseas opportunities. Did you see this, Mem? This is actually one I think that Tarek shared, which basically said, we need to fix this housing issue. So government grants, housing summit. And then somebody says, cut immigration. And on the third one there, gets chucked out the window. You can't talk about cutting immigration, but surely, this needs to be in the mix because, like it or not, we're in the situation where the supply side is completely broken, as we've discussed. The demand side is very strong, and it's being made ever stronger by the migration strategies. And as you say, people looking at Australia as a relatively safe country from an investment point of view. And then if you think about the way that dynamic works, what it means is that a lot of local people continue to be squeezed out of the market or have to buy very compromised properties or buy potentially, the old maybe apartments or maybe new apartments. But then you've got to have all those questions coming straight after about the quality of the construction and all the stories that we see about the number of people who bought into the high rise and then a bit later they discover they've got huge issues Well, here's a case study that you've actually shared, which makes the point, right? Buy an apartment, jump into the market, they said. Buy an apartment, they said. Trust the agent's report about the property. What could go wrong? Well, here's an example of what could go wrong.
Yeah, this is crazy, right? And this is from a builder mate of mine that is actually a tier two builder, and you got to be a tier two builder in order to a level two builder to do the rectification work in high rise developments. So not just any builder can do these can do the rectification work. This is just a four, call it a five square meter balcony. This is scary shit. This is really, really scary. So, uh, and I wanted to get it. I wanted to put it. I wanted him to put it on record so I can share it today, and I'll share it obviously on my X post as well. And I did a double take when he said 65. I thought when he first told me about it, I thought I said to him, "You mean 6,500?" He goes, "No, mate, 65,000." 65,000 for one balcony and 75,000 for another balcony because a lot of strata companies are actually a number of strata companies are actually demanding a special type of waterproofing membrane and this is what they've got to what potentially many buildings, and this one is in the North Shore, in North Sydney. And so, can you imagine if more than likely I didn't share the rest of that post that WhatsApp messages there because I said, mate, if two have gone in the complex, you can be assured that most of them would be gone. And he and he sent a crazy emoji saying, "I hope so." Yeah, it's a complex of about 62 units.
Hmm.
I mean, that is devastating. And if the waterproofing membrane has failed in the balcony, you can be assured that the waterproofing membrane in the bathrooms are on the way as well, if not already compromised. And sooner than later, you won't need to turn the tap on. You won't need to turn the shower on at your level in order to have a shower. Yeah, you can wash yourself with although it'll be secondhand, but hey you can save on energy. So this is insane. That's it. And this is Pavlova Apartments Part Two. We shared Pavlova Apartments in slow motion. From somebody that's in the construction industry is currently working in one of the buildings in the upper North Shore of Sydney, and it's actually happening before his eyes, and he can't, he can't be a whistleblower because we actually prosecute whistleblowers. We don't encourage them. We prosecute them. Crazy. That's where we are.
Yeah. And again, I've had more one-to-one conversations over the last couple of weeks with people who are in this particular situation. So they've got this apartment and now they're finding all the defects, and the strata company is sort of asking for more money. And the question is, well, what do I do? Do I pay the money and hope that they fix the problem? Do I get somebody else to look at it? As you say, if my apartment has the problem, pretty much you can be guaranteed that others in the block have the same problem. And so the quantum of the difficulty in trying to solve this gets ever more difficult. And of course, the other factor, and again, going back to one of my one-to-one conversations, they'd bought in an area where apartments peaked in price in 2017. So the capital value of the property that they've got is now about 20% below where it was. And they're being faced with these additional costs, the additional demands for more money from the strata company to fix various defects. And, you're in a no-win situation. And this is why I keep saying to people, if you're going to buy into high-rise, you've got to go with your eyes open. You've got to ask yourself some really serious questions, because we know, according to New South Wales building inspection people, that half of the properties at least have defects. It's probably higher. and that we know that waterproofing is one of the most critical ones that keeps getting called out as a major problem. And going back to what we said at the start of the show, what have we got coming in the next 24 hours? Another big deluge. So I wonder how many of those properties are going to be impacted simply because the nature of the water that's coming out the sky now is it comes in bigger lumps, and maybe it is more likely to flood. So this is a major issue, and yet what is MIMS doing, and what are the other state strategies doing? But they wanted to build more high-rise stuff cheaply, quickly, with more defects built
And
in on
reduce,
day
yeah,
one. Maybe they should advertise it as part of the feature set of the property. When you buy this new property, not only do you get 2 beds, 2 baths, and a veranda, but you have a water feature as well.
yeah, you can have a water feature in the middle, and like some of the Opal Tower apartments have got a water feature in the not a water feature, an actual new feature walls,
Yeah, that's right.
in
A
order to keep the
beautiful
bath.
crack, sculpted. You can make
Yeah.
it a feature, and you hang. Maybe you can do a climbing frame up
Well,
or something.
if it's in the right position, you can have views of the city skyline. So, but see, the problem that I mean, throwing another uh, grenade into the mix there, Martin, is the fact that when you've got this, if that area that you're talking about with your one-to-one, that they've gone down, like they peaked at 2017. Now the values have actually dropped by anywhere between 10 and 20% to bring it back to the to 2015, 2017 levels when they were bought off the plane. So now you've got the dilemma, and this is where a lot of people don't understand the nature of development. Is the dilemma is that construction costs back then were not as high as the construction costs now, and you're getting you think that just because you're paying a lot more to build, that you're going to get a better product at the end. Well, as a matter of fact, you're not, and the governments are pushing for, as you said, for less of a quality, more quantity, less quality, and they want to scale down on the governance or the scrutineering of how it's built in order to entice developers to build. Um, the smart ones won't build. The ones that don't give a crap, they'll build. As we shared about 3 months ago, we were already talking about some of the second tier developers that were wanting to start to jump in, putting sites together. But the only developments that make sense are those in the high value areas. Where you can sell the penthouse for 27 million, 30 million, or sub penthouse apartments, 3 bedroom apartments for like one of my mates sold it to an Indonesian family that just wanted a holiday home. Sold it off the plan for 26 million, and then because they liked it so much, they bought the one next door for another 26 million, and they're getting the developer to amend to lodge an amendment to the development and take out one of the walls, the party wall between the two apartments, and make it one great big apartment, at their cost. So this is the crazy money that's sitting offshore that's willing to come to America, to Australia. Um, but so unless you're building in those areas, try to sell an apartment in Doonside. Try to sell an apartment in Blacktown. Try to sell a 2 bedroom apartment, even in North Ryde, Top Ryde for $1.2 million. And that'll be a very small, shitty apartment in North Ryde for 1.2, because that's what you got to sell them for in order for the bank to fund it. In order the bank needs to see a gross profit at the end on the end sales. They've got to be wanting to see minimum 22% in order for them to even risk the funding. And this is where the state government, this is what the developers have been waiting for over 15 months, for the state governments to put their hand in the pocket and use taxpayers' money to guarantee that at the end. So in other words, what they can't sell, that basically the state government will buy, or I don't know how they're going to negotiate that deal, but that's what they need to have, because otherwise they don't get funding. You're talking about the figures what we've shared even 6 months ago when I spoke to my son, it's an engineer, and I asked him about the costings because he assesses the cost of the construction for his company, and he was saying, Dad, this is 6 months ago, saying that we're up to 580 on average across Sydney for a two-bedroom apartment, $580,000 to
Mm.
build.
Mm.
That's post the purchase of the land. So, if the lot per lot costs you 580 to build, the land costs you 400. There's, then you've got to add a contingencies and everything else. By the time you can't, you're not going to get much change out of a $1.3 million uh, purchase. You're not going to get much change out of it, and you're going to get a two-bedroom. But if you recall, when we started talking about when Mins and the state government were beating their chests as to the developments past Schofield, how much were those apartments up when we were looking at those figures? Up in the new developments up there in Rouse Hill and those areas there. I mean, they were upwards of $1 million for a two-bedroom. 950 to 1.1 in the sticks. Whoop whoop, where I believe with a torrential downpour, the basement will be underwater.
Mm. Another water feature, see? So you can have a swimming pool in the basement
A
as
pool,
well.
a swimming
Hey!
pool.
But it just shows you how broken the property market is. And just to take the sort of the brokenness a little further, there's also this little discussion point here, which is that why boomers are holding on to their massive homes even if they want to downsize. And of course, the suggestion is that perhaps it's to do with the pension, because the home value is not counted. Now, I'm a little skeptical of that as being the full story, but clearly there is an issue with people living in bigger properties and not moving into smaller properties because they choose not to for all sorts of reasons. And you actually came back and gave a bit of a spin on this.
Yeah, well, see, look, commentators are commentators, right? Whatever gives you clicks. I mean, but from you can tell that BK is a very angry individual, and he obviously hates his mum and dad. He's got issues with his mum and dad or with the boomers. So, look, at the end of the day, you've got to. What I've asked him, well, what do you believe is your solution? And what I also pointed out is if you really want to be more educated as to what's really going on, watch the Monday evening property rants with yourself and myself, because we've discussed about this point, and it's not just about them not wanting to move. It's more to the point. It's about the fact that they can't move. They're caught. They're caught out. They want to move. The desire is to move because it's costing them. The pension is by no means supporting the upkeep of the property, and they can't eat the brick and mortar that they're living under or the roof tiles that they're living under. That's just one of those quirky things of nature that you just can't eat. Our homes are not built out of gingerbread like they build them over in England. We
Yum,
build
yum.
them out of bricks and mortar and terracotta and asbestos. So, and the upkeep is very, very, very high. Yes, in some areas, some pockets are worth 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 10 million, 12 million, but they simply can't move
Mm.
because when they bought them for $25,000, Mark. They bought them for that they went from they may have even bought them in for £1,500 or 1,200 or £1,100, whatever the case may have been, and over the course of the development of Sydney and the nature and the landscape, as I've said before, uh, when we came to Australia, you didn't want to live in Balmain. Balmain was worse than walking through King's Cross. It was just one of those anomalies. Now, because of the changes and the development, I mean, try to get into Balmain for you're not going to get much change out of 5 million or $6 million just to beat your chest and say that you live in Balmain. So this is for a terrace. And this is the nature of that landscape. So a lot of these people want to move,
Mm.
but for again, we go back to the but for. The local government policies with regards to small and medium density development, the local government controls, the red tape, the NIMBYs. And the NIMBYs aren't just made up of boomers, and a lot of people need to start working out that a lot of the NIMBYs, as a matter of fact, are a lot younger than myself. So don't just blame the boomers. Um, and and they want to they basically want to as many the old saying goes, you're not going to get me out of my house unless you take me out in a pine box. But why should we force people out of their homes that they acquired 50, 60 years ago just because the new generation want to move and they got a chip on the shoulder? So it's just the nature of the development where we're at. So there's a lot of angry people out there, but people have got to understand that there's a lot more that's going on, which we go back to the original topic of the original conversation at the beginning of the video of the rant, and that was a lot of it stems back to government policy.
Yep.
Bad government policy, bad governance, and no real infrastructure to enable a lot of these boomers to sell and downsize. And this is the irony, right? The irony is that when the boomers sell for your 6 million, let's say, 5 million, 6 million, then they want to stay local and they'll jack up the price of your villa or your smaller cottage in the area because they don't want to move away. That's where the hospitals are. That's where the medical centers are that they attend to. That's where the friends are. That's where the local club is. That's the life that they've lived there for the last 50, 60 years, whatever, 70 years. And they will jack up the price of the smaller dwellings, older, smaller dwellings, that the aspiring new homeowners want to buy into that area for the same very reason that the boomers have been living there for decades.
Yeah, well, it's exactly right. And interestingly, again, on the one-on-one conversations, I've had a couple recently where people are now considering reverse mortgages. So they're in the situation where their cash flow is under huge pressure. They've got this huge asset that's perhaps got no mortgage on at all at the moment. They've looked around to try and work out whether they can actually buy and sell, but they can't. They can't stay in the same area. So now they're actually going to the reverse mortgage story, which basically says, well, what I'll do is I'll put a mortgage back on the property. They'll give me a cash flow until I die, and then my estate can sort it out, which can be sometimes not a bad strategy, but quite often you end up with significant unintended consequences, and in fact the value that they're prepared to lend, etc., and the cost is quite high. So but it pumps the credit up. And talking about credit more broadly, it is interesting, the latest data, this is actually from the Westpac analysis, showed that the housing credit, which is 63% of total private credit, was actually at 0.5% over the last month. So that's per month, 0.5%. So multiply that by 12, and you can see that we're looking at an annual growth of 6%. So credit, including the housing credit, growing at 6% per annum. In comparison to the latest inflation data, this is actually from the Melbourne Institute. The ABS is saying 3%. The Melbourne Institute is saying a much lower one. So let's just be clear, folks. We are still borrowing for housing significantly more than the inflation rate. So we're getting more and more leveraged up. And I do think that this idea of people looking for reverse mortgages is now part of the story. Now, of course, reverse mortgages went out of fashion quite some time ago because of the very bad selling and because of the fact that people were suddenly confronted with, a demand for payments and things. Now, the rules have got changed, but it is not something that you should doing without a lot of advice and a lot of thinking, because there are huge risks here. But again, it's part of the pump, pump, pump. And it comes back. And the fundamental point you make, Edwin, is this sort of intergenerational warfare that's breaking out. Blame the boomers or blame the youngsters or whatever. No, blame the politicians. Bad policy for 2 generations have created this problem, and it's created the internecine warfare between the young and the old, and the haves and the have-nots. It's deliberate policy, and we should ask, who is accountable? And the answer is the politicians are accountable.
Yeah, and all this like the the band-aid solutions, ad hoc solutions, band-aid solutions to big issues
Yep.
that end up festering, and next thing you know, you don't need a couple of stitches, you need your bloody limb amputated. Yeah, with these reverse mortgages. People have got to understand, yeah, they're fine, they're okay, as long as you obviously get the right legal and financial advice. But also, you got to also know and understand when to bail out,
Yeah.
and look at the reasons to want to opt out. Yeah, look, you could, as I said, many will take that on until they, those reverse mortgages are triggered when they get taken out in the pine box. But it's what sort of lifestyle. The lifestyles that a lot or many live. I know a couple of families in the mountains that they're living under those circumstances, and it's very difficult because the weather, the changes, and the changes over time, over decades of bad maintenance to materials is becoming very, very, very rapid, and the value of the property deteriorates a lot quicker. When you're exposed to a lot of these, when if you don't paint the house on the outside well, and if you've got a lot of either you see a lot of the timber cladding in the mountains, it starts to deteriorate. So it's very costly to maintain. So you've got to know when to bail out, and look at, seriously look at other options, and realign. But yeah, each to their own. Each circumstance stands on its own, and whatever the need is. But overall, it's not that they won't, or it's just that they can't.
Yep.
And it just the cost is horrendous. The transaction costs of what they're gonna what they lose. So not only are we having this rebirthing of, or relooking at, looking once again very, with very focused eyes into the reverse mortgages, but what we're seeing also more and more is uh, the the children coming back. So now we've got, in certain properties that we've inspected with our team, when we're looking for properties for clients in high net worth areas, we're seeing that not only do you have children, but you've also got grandparents now. You've got almost 3 generations living in the households. Yeah, the big homes, they can accommodate them, but that's what they've got to do in order to sustain a lifestyle and to stay in the area.
Absolutely. Well, it's creating a whole bunch of social changes, and as you say, multi-generational people living together in a sort of extended family model. We've got people who are actually having to reverse mortgage just to stay where they are. And as you say, the maintenance costs are very high. You've got young people not able to get into the market and frustrated by that, and badgering their parents for some money to be able to get in. It's madness. Let's just close out briefly with just the latest numbers. So here in Sydney on the 23rd, 19,802 properties listed in the Sydney region as defined by domain, 19,793 the following week. So very little there. And then you can see there that the listings are still higher than last year, although just down very slightly. If you look at Melbourne, 25,479 on the 23rd compared with 25,015 on the 30th. Brisbane, 3,439 on the 23rd, 3,461. So that week on the 30th there. So very little change. But the really interesting observation is the question of auctions, Edwin, and the auction numbers are still relatively benign. I would say low. And in fact, you've called this out in your latest analysis, which really shows that the clearances and the counts are way, way down.
Yeah, the counts have cratered, and no one's talking about it other than you and I. This is the real story. Yeah, not the high auction clearance rates, not the real story is the fact that we're running at 60%, or thereabouts, up to the now the website that I get this data from, for the auctions it actually scrapes all the listings on the domain region. So it's funny how the auction clearance rates brought out by domain, they don't use their own listings, but as defined on the Sydney region, but they use a different numbers, and that's why they can embellish their numbers, because they're not really, it's smoke and mirrors. So the numbers that I've been sharing for many years are the ones that the website scrapes from domain, that are listed on the domain portal, under the domain region, as we've been discussing. But if you look at that sample, that's the tail. That is the real story. And that the fact that both seller sentiment and buyers are opting out, in my opinion, from auctions. I don't know I mean, I know what's driving it is the education, and people are just fed up with the shenanigans that are going on. And obviously, the word's been spread over the years that, well, from what we've been sharing, how we've been educating the people, and that's become even a lot more people since I've been talking about underquoting for almost 22 years, from all my posts, even before I was on X or Twitter at that time. I was talking on other platforms about it, but people have over the years picked it up. So it's a win. It's a win-win. It's another positive, that people are being educated, and we're educating them. And you also brought out that short video with real estate lies exposed. So which was rather rather interesting as well.
Yeah, well, I actually based that on a longer one that I put out yesterday, which is calling out the auction clearance BS again. And if you want to hear more about that, check out the video went up yesterday, before I put the short out, Edwin. And I highlighted the difference between the domain 70% clearance rate in Sydney and the SQM data, which is a much different number. And the fact is that both can't be true. And it comes back to the definition of region. It comes back to the definition of what are you comparing. And of course, the fact is that the catality and the domain, what they're doing is, taking the data the agents say, we sold, but it's actually what the divisor is that's the issue. It's not the right number. So it's artificially high. And that gives you the typical headlines like here, unlivable Sydney home sells for 2.5 million as a headline. But the first line of the article in the Fin Review was the national auction clearance rate has risen to its highest level in a year after 2 interest rate cuts and the possibility of more help to boost buyer confidence in the property market. Now, that is absolute BS. It is not true. It's not true at all. But of course, as we discussed, there is a reason why, in fact, they're being talked up. They're being talked up by people, of course, who have vested interest. And remember that a lot of those writers are working for mags that are actually connected directly with the property industry. So maybe it's not too surprising that they would only want to ever say it's going get really, really well. Nothing to see here other than boom, boom, boom. And of course, this one here is the same store. Both the volume of auctions and the early success rate significantly increased across the capital cities during the weekend. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Those are incorrect numbers. And that goes back to what we said. And real estate lies exposed. Don't fall for this. It's really important that people actually understand the basis of the information. And as you said, and I want to reiterate, Edwin, the truth is that more people are switched on now to not being influenced by the idea of an auction or even going to an auction. They actually want to avoid the auction story altogether because there are too many problems with the whole system, from the non-committed bidders through to the twisted arm on prices from the agents, and the compressed timeframes, which allows the agents to sort of make a quick buck. Auctions are highly suspect at the moment. The data is even more suspect. But actually, what isn't so suspect is the value tracker. And it's interesting to see. You can see
Yeah, and
here.
this is yeah, and this shows you that the high end properties are absolutely dead
Mm,
at auction. They've dropped. When I say dead, I mean I should use a different word. I mean they drop. It's a sudden drop. So we've gone from a 2 million clearance, on average, sale property that was sold on average over the weekend last weekend. We clipped the 2 million again, but now we've gone down to 1.7, I think 1.775 what was the drop. So
mm.
now what is that? What's the story behind that? Is the fact that the higher end properties where you generally see the traditional auctions, in other words, your eastern suburbs, your North Shores, your upper North Shores, those areas where are hot for auctions, have been for decades. People are weary because the money isn't available. But where they are transacting, they're getting a lot of attendees is obviously, apart from the obvious where properties are underquoted, but they're also, and they're getting good clearances are in your pockets, where you are seeing 8, 10 bidders register and compete at your entry level prices between your 900 and your 1.2, 1.3 million dollar properties, which is where the fight is really on. So yeah, the traditional, a lot of the traditional markets for auctions are waning, but the lower end properties markets are, something comes up because of the demand. They're really, they are really pushing. But look, Martin, one of the very important things is that we find is trying to educate our buyers, our clients, is that we don't shy away from auctions. I mean, I personally love to, try and buy at the auction because I have a ball. And again, as I say, sometimes we attend auctions not necessarily to buy. Obviously, we set our limit, and if the auction bridges that limit, well, we don't chase it.
Mm.
But we're there in order to see who our competitors are, that are buying in the local area, how they are performing or not performing at the auction, or how enthusiastic. There's a lot of different elements. There's a lot of moving parts. But when one of our clients wants to buy a property that's coming up for auction, obviously there's strategies to try and buy prior to auction, during the auction, and post the auction. And you've got to understand all the different strategies in order to be successful. And success isn't necessarily that you're walking away with the property. Success could, means a lot of different things. Success basically means, understanding who your competition is, knowing what the local sentiment is, knowing, also educating your competition, and as to, making them aware. That's why I say I love participating in auctions, because there's shit that I ask that most of the buyers that are throwing the hand up in the air, and buyers agents that are throwing the hand up in the air, wouldn't even know was happening in the property or not happening, and there's false and misleading information being given. All these sort of things. So success isn't necessarily buying the property. Success is just understanding what's going on in order to be better positioned at the next auction or try to buy other properties prior to auction.
Now, that's a very good point, Edwin, and you can learn a lot, can't you, by seeing what's going on. Let's just briefly look at the rentals before we close. So in Sydney on the 23rd, 12,111. Following week, 12,035, to a very small drop compared with the Melbourne story. On the 16th, we had 11,980. On the 23rd, 12,072. So that's the little story there. So a bit of a change of direction, but not major movements. And as we come to the end of the show, Edwin, I think we should just cycle back and make the point. There is some really important stuff you need to do when you're thinking about dealing with the high pressure sales tactics, particularly, of course, in auctions, and how to keep the emotion out of it. It's really important.
Yeah, and this goes with pretty much with what we've been talking about throughout the show, and what the mainstream media are trying to push out there, and at the end of it is really you need to learn how to sidestep pressure. You need to learn, and I couldn't come up with a better phrase, but you need to be able to sidestep the pressure that the agents, whether it's a private treaty sale or a sale by auction, because they'll try, especially in the market, as I said, in that price band from your 900 from your 900 to your 1.3 million.
Yeah.
Because it is a very contested market in many parts of Sydney. It's very, very contested because that's a sweet spot. And so yeah, you whether it's private treaty with sale, you need basically set your limit, and don't just set your limit based on what you see in front of you, but start taking into account future costs. Bathroom renovations. Bathroom renovations have gone up from your typical 12 months ago. You could do a bathroom renovation for $18,000. Now some there are very small bathroom renovations that one of they've been built out at 35, anything from 35 to $55,000.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of moving parts with that as well, and because of the costs, and because a lot of people can charge that, and people aren't the wiser. So you got So if you set in mind that a bathroom renovation is going to cost you, let's say on average 30,000, and that would be on average with mid-range fixtures and fittings, PC items. And then you look at your kitchen. Depends on how swanky you want your kitchen. I mean, put 50,000, whether you spend that or whether you spend more. I mean, these are just your averages. And these are the things that you got to take into consideration. But more importantly, don't rely on the building and inspection reports that are given by the agent, but get your own. And although the building inspector won't tell you what it would cost to do certain rectification work that is not on the building report that the agent provides to you, but you can then reach out to different tradespeople and find out what the general costs are. I mean, I know a lot of them off the top of my head because I'm dealing with it day in, day out, and the rest of my team, we're forever chasing our builders and asking them all these sort of questions. So it's almost like we know them off the top of our head. Like we know how much it would cost to build an apartment because of all the developers and builders that we deal with and talk with over the last 3 decades. So likewise, it's a moving target with the cost to renovate, and it's a target that can really run away at times because of the unforeseen issues. Because you can't do intrusive investigation, but you've got to take all these things into account. So they're your costs. So once you've set your costs and you set your boundary, that's it.
Mm.
And if you don't get it, you don't get it. You've set your boundary on a price point where you should feel comfortable to walk away, and basically, wipe that off, that pressure off your shoulder, and not don't get pressured, because it's when the agents can see that you're under pressure, they will squeeze the extra 20, 30, 40, 50,000, because they will Dutch auction your offer with the other offer, as much as they say, oh no, we keep it in confidence, oh no, we don't want to tell, oh no. I mean, you see it live at the auctions, where the agents go from one person to the other. Oh, that's the limit. That's the limit. If you're throwing another 10,000, I'm sure they've that they won't have any more. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, really, yeah, yeah, and yeah, okay, here's your 10, and then they'll run up to your opposition. The same agent that told you that will run
Mm.
across the to the other side and say, oh, I think they've reached their limit. If you're throwing another five, well, yeah. I mean, and this is all happening in front, and people are so caught up in the emotion, they don't see that the little vulture on the left here is also telling the same shit to the other person in the right ear. So that's it. Just basically set your limit.
Yeah, and a final point from me, Edwin, and that is if you've done the work and you know what the costs are to actually bring the property up to scratch, um, you can use that in the negotiation. I did that when I bought this property, right? I knew the roof needed to be fixed. I was able to bring that to the table and, in fact, negotiated them down to be able to cover the costs of the roof work. If I hadn't done the work myself, they would have actually not moved. But because I was able to produce the evidence, they did. So it's good in the negotiation. But the bottom line is you've got to know your limit and you've got to keep the emotion out. Edwin, thank you very much. Very important show again tonight, as always. I'll look forward to next week, and I hope you don't get washed away in the next couple of days.
Oh no, the water's got to come a long way to wash us away. We're set. And yeah, another word of another point of advice for those in the ponds in those areas, go out and buy yourself a rubber dinghy. You may need it.
Yeah, very good. Edwin, take care. See you next week.
Take care, mate.
Bye.